Vietnam War ends as Saigon falls to North control. Apple is founded, a tech company with a bold goal. Elvis Presley dies at the young age of 42, and the Jonestown Massacre claims over 900 lives in a grim view. Iranian Revolution removes the Shah from power. John Lennon is shot in front of Dakota Tower. AIDS is discovered, marking a terrifying new disease. Falklands War erupts. Britain claims the islands with ease. Sally Ride becomes the first U.S. woman in space. Indira Gandhi's assassination shocks India's vast place. In 1975, Jaws grossed $470,653,000. In 1976, Rocky grossed $225 million. In 1977, Star Wars grossed $775,398,007. In 1978, Grease grossed $396,271,103. In 1979, Moonraker grossed $210,300,000. The heart beats around 100,000 times per day. Honey never spoils even after thousands of years. Octopuses have 3 hearts and blue blood. Bananas are technically classified as berries. Sharks existed before trees by millions of years. The Eiffel Tower can grow during hot weather. Butterflies taste with their feet. A group of flamingos is called a flamboyance. Koalas have fingerprints similar to humans. Venus is the hottest planet in our solar system. In 1980, Star Wars Episode V: The Empire Strikes Back grossed $538,375,067. In 1981, Raiders of the Lost Ark grossed $389,925,971. In 1982, E.T. the Extraterrestrial grossed $792,910,554. In 1983, Star Wars Episode VI: Return of the Jedi grossed $475,106,177. In 1984, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom grossed $333,107,271. What if Dr. Seuss wrote Pet Sematary? On a twisty-turny Maine back road, the Creed family found their humble abode. A big yellow house with a porch so wide and secrets lurking just outside. "Look at this place," said Louis with a cheer. "I think we'll be happy right here." Rachel, his wife, nodded her head while Gage and Ellie zipped past the shed. But beyond the fence, the woods were thick, dark and tangled, eerie and slick, and way back past trees that creak was a path where the curious shouldn't peek. "Where does it lead?" little Ellie did shout. "I bet there's treasure, let's check it out." But Judd from next door, old and wise, stepped in with caution flashing in his eyes. "Not so fast now," Judd did say, "that path ain't for kids to play. It winds, and what you'll find might just linger in your mind." Ellie blinked. "Is it scary there?" Judd just nodded. "Best beware. But if someday you're brave, you'll see a pet graveyard beneath that tree." "A pet graveyard?" Louis asked with a laugh. "Who made it?" "Kids," Judd said, "by the path. Their pups and cats rest there just fine, marked with stones in crooked lines." Rachel shivered and shook her head. "Enough about graveyards and the dead. Let's focus on getting Gage to nap. We don't need spooky, eerie mishaps." But Ellie whispered late that night, "The path by the trees gave me a fright." Louis sighed. "It's just a trail." But something in the wind began to wail. Little did they know that day their lives would change in a chilling way, for secrets slumbered beneath the ground, and sometimes the dead came back around. Live Aid concerts raise millions for African famine aid. Chernobyl disaster leaves an irradiated world dismayed. Black Monday crashes global markets' financial despair. Pan Am Flight 103 explodes in Scotland's air. Berlin Wall falls, East and West Germany unite. Nelson Mandela walks free, a victory for civil rights. Soviet Union dissolves, the Cold War comes to a halt. Los Angeles riots expose racial injustice's fault. World Trade Center is bombed by a terror group's plan, and Nelson Mandela becomes South Africa's first black man. In 1985, Back to the Future grossed $388,800,000. In 1986, Top Gun grossed $356,800,000. In 1987, Three Men and a Baby grossed $240 million. In 1988, Rain Man grossed $354,825,435. In 1989, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade grossed $474,171,806. Wombat poop is cube-shaped. Tomatoes were once thought to be poisonous. Elephants can't jump. Antarctica is the driest desert in the world. A day on Venus is longer than a year. Cows have best friends and get stressed when separated. The human body has 206 bones. The shortest war lasted only 38 minutes. A jellyfish has no brain or heart. Avocados are fruits, not vegetables. In 1990, Ghost grossed $505,702,588. In 1991, Terminator 2 Judgment Day grossed $520,881,154. In 1992, Aladdin grossed $504,050,219. In 1993, Jurassic Park grossed $1,046,000,000. In 1994, The Lion King grossed $968,500,000. How would Douglas Adams summarize Jane Eyre? It is a truth universally acknowledged. Wait, wrong book. Jane Eyre is the sort of novel where terrible things happen to a small orphan girl, and for some inexplicable reason everyone just assumes she'll be fine with it. She isn't. Jane, who has approximately the same social standing as a very intelligent potted plant, is dumped at Lowood School, which is less an educational institution and more a 19th century Hunger Games simulator. There she endures starvation, bullying, and the kind of discipline that would make a Victorian headmaster nod approvingly while polishing his cane. Eventually, a typhus outbreak solves most of the school's administrative problems, and Jane, having miraculously survived, grows up into a governess. She takes a job at Thornfeld Hall, an estate so large and ominous that it's legally required to obtain a dark and brooding man. Enter Edward Fairfax Rochester, a human thundercloud in breeches. He is rude, mysterious, and because this is a gothic novel, he insists on testing Jane's intelligence by disguising himself as a fortune teller. Somehow this works as a romantic strategy. Despite the occasional mysterious laughter in the attic and the fact that Rochester has the social grace of a damp sponge, Jane falls for him. Just as she's about to live happily ever after, the wedding is interrupted by the literary equivalent of a car alarm. Stop! He's already married! Turns out Rochester forgot to mention his actual wife, Bertha, who is locked in the attic and has an unfortunate habit of setting things on fire. Jane, unwilling to participate in Victorian polyamory, leaves. What follows is a deeply inconvenient walk across the moors, where Jane almost starves to death before being rescued by a man named St. John Rivers, which sounds suspiciously like an anagram for plot device. He wants her to marry him and become a missionary, an idea Jane finds about as thrilling as eating cold porridge forever. Just when she's considering a life of aggressively pious boredom, she physically hears Rochester's voice calling her. Because sure, why not? She returns to Thornfeld to discover that Bertha has gone full gothic novel checklist. Arson, rooftop escape, dramatic death, the house is in ruins, Rochester is blind, and Jane, realizing that being single is overrated, promptly marries him. Thus Jane gets her happy ending, Rochester gets a wife who won't mysteriously combust, and Victorian England presumably carries on being gloomy. Moral of the story? Always check the attic before getting married. Oklahoma bombing brings a nation's grief to the fore, and mad cow disease outbreak in Britain causes panic galore. Princess Diana dies tragically in a Paris car crash. Google is founded. Web searches expand in a flash. Columbine massacre shocks America with student violence. Concorde crash ends the supersonic era in silence. September 11th attacks forever change global peace. The Euro debuts, giving European trade a new lease. Columbia shuttle breaks apart upon re-entry flight. Indian Ocean tsunami strikes coastal towns with might. In 1995, Toy Story grossed $373,554,033. In 1996, Independence Day grossed $817,400,891. In 1997, Titanic grossed $2,201,647,264. In 1998, Armageddon grossed $553,709,788. In 1991, Star Wars Episode I The Phantom Menace grossed $1,027,082,707. Lightning is hotter than the surface of the sun. The Great Wall of China is not visible from space. Sloths can hold their breath longer than dolphins. Cats can't taste sweet flavors. The inventor of the microwave was inspired by chocolate melting. Goldfish have a memory span longer than 3 seconds. The Amazon rainforest produces 20% of the Earth's oxygen. An ostrich's eye is bigger than its brain. Peanuts are not nuts, they're legumes. Venus flytraps can count to 2 before snapping shut. In 2000, Mission Impossible 2 grossed $546,388,105. In 2001, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone grossed $974,755,371. In 2002, The Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers grossed $936,689,735. In 2003, The Lord of the Rings: The Return of the King grossed $1,142,219,401. In 2004, Shrek grossed $935,253,978. What if Stephen King wrote Green Eggs and Ham? It was a cold morning when the man wandered into the town. The fog clung to the streets and the air smelled like something was waiting. He didn't know why he had come here. Maybe it was the rumors, or maybe it was the house on the hill, but something tugged at him. Then he saw him. Sam I Am. Not quite a man, not quite anything at all. His eyes were wide and unblinking, his smile a thing of shadows stretching across his face. "You don't want to be here," Sam I Am said, voice like a breeze, soft and dangerous. "You don't want this." The man looked at the plate Sam I Am held, a small green plate with 2 eggs and a slice of ham. The eggs were green in a way that wasn't natural, and the ham gleamed wet, almost too fresh. "Green eggs and ham," Sam I Am whispered, his voice full of secrets. "They're not for you." The man hesitated. The wind stilled, and the air felt too heavy. He didn't want to be rude, but something about the whole scene felt wrong. "I'm fine," he muttered, trying to step back. "I'll pass." But Sam I Am stepped closer, blocking the path, his smile never leaving. "You will eat it. You will eat it. And you'll love it. You will eat it. You'll eat it, and you'll love it. They all do. It's your turn now." The man's throat tightened, a sudden pang of hunger gnawing at him. His stomach rumbled, and against his better judgment he took the plate. The eggs felt cold in his hands, the ham unnaturally warm. "Eat it," Sam said, his voice sharper now, like the sound of a distant storm. "Eat it, and you'll never leave." The man bit into the eggs. The taste was wrong. It was rancid, like something had crawled out of the earth and found its way onto the plate. He tried to spit it out, but the taste lingered, heavy and thick. The air grew colder, the fog thickened around them. He felt dizzy, as though the world was spinning in slow motion, his vision blurred. And then Sam I Am's voice, so quiet it could have been the wind, whispered, "You should have listened. You should have stayed away." But it was too late. The eggs had taken root in him, and now there was no going back. The man fell to his knees, and all he could see was Sam I Am's smile growing wider and darker as the fog swallowed him whole. Hurricane Katrina devastates New Orleans and the Gulf. Saddam Hussein is executed by Iraqi states' resolve. Global financial crisis spreads, markets spiral and fall. Barack Obama becomes America's first black president for all. H1N1 flu spreads rapidly, a new global scare. Deepwater Horizon spill pollutes the ocean beyond repair. Osama bin Laden is killed by SEAL Team 6's might. CERN discovers Higgs boson particle changing physics insight. Pope Francis becomes the first Jesuit pope in Rome. Malaysia flight MH370 disappears, never flown home. In 2005, Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire grossed $896,374,000. In 2006, Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Man's Chest grossed $1,066,179,725. In 2007, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End grossed $960,996,492. In 2008, The Dark Knight grossed $1,006,234,167. In 2009, Avatar grossed $2,923,706,026. Dolphins have names for each other. A group of crows is called a murder. The human brain uses 20% of the body's energy. Some turtles can breathe through their butts. Penguins propose with pebbles to their mates. The moon is slowly drifting away from the Earth. Butterflies remember being caterpillars after metamorphosis. The longest hiccup lasted 68 years. Spiders can regrow lost legs after molting. A day on Mercury is 176 Earth days long. In 2010, Toy Story 3 grossed $1,066,969,703. In 2011, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 2 grossed $1,342,321,665. In 2012, The Avengers grossed $1,518,815,515. In 2013, Frozen grossed $1,290,000,000. In 2014, Transformers: Age of Extinction grossed $1,104,054,072. How would Kurt Vonnegut summarize the Dunwich Horror? Listen, there are places in America where you don't go. Not because they tell you not to, but because something inside you, some ancient, jittery lizard brain instinct, tells you not to. One such place is Dunwich, Massachusetts, where the goats are nervous and the locals have inbreeding down to a science. The Watelli family is exactly the kind of family you'd expect to live in a place like Dunwich. There's old Wizard Watelli, who smells like damp wool and bad decisions. And Lavinia Watelli, an albino woman who gives birth to Wilbur Watelli, who is born already looking like he has a mortgage. Wilbur grows up too fast. Not in a wow, he's mature for his age way, but in a he's 9 feet tall and smells like sulfur way. The townsfolk notice, but since they live in Dunwich, they figure this is just the way things go. What Wilbur does, aside from growing into a walking cryptid, is haunt the Miskatonic University Library, where he wants to borrow the Necronomicon, a book made entirely of bad vibes. Dr. Armitage, the closest thing this story has to a hero, tells him to get lost. Wilbur, not one to take no for an answer, breaks into the library at night and promptly gets eaten by a dog. So it goes. Meanwhile, something in the Watelli house gets loud. Something big. The house collapses and whatever was inside it gets loose, and by loose I mean it starts stomping across the countryside like Godzilla's idiot cousin, breaking trees, smashing barns, and making professors very nervous. It is invisible, but not in a cool, stealthy way, more in a we can hear it breathing and it sounds like a garbage disposal full of bones way. Turns out Wilbur had a brother. A much bigger brother. This one is so big the only reason it didn't get out sooner is that it couldn't fit through the door. Now it's out and the locals finally admit that this is a problem. Dr. Armitage and his colleagues climb a mountain to do something scientific and Latin at it. This works. The creature, Wilbur's twin, is now briefly visible, which is unfortunate because it looks exactly like a cosmic horror should not, which is to say, exactly like its father, Yog-Sothoth, an extra-dimensional nightmare with an impractical number of eyes. Before it dies, it cries out for its cosmic dad, but, like most gods, Yog-Sothoth is not known for showing up when you need him. The horror is over. Dunwich, being Dunwich, shrugs and continues being awful. Dr. Armitage probably writes a very smug academic paper about it. The moral? If your town has a local wizard, maybe do something about this. Paris terror attacks leave the city mourning the dead. Brexit vote shocks Europe, the future fills with dread. Me Too movement calls out abuse across industries wide. Thai cave rescue saves 12 boys and their coach inside. Notre Dame Cathedral fire shocks France and the world. COVID-19 pandemic leaves nations in crisis unfurled. U.S. Capitol is stormed by rioters seeking to object. Russia invades Ukraine, defying global orders to respect. AI advancements revolutionize industries from work to play. Climate summit agreements lead the world toward a better day. In 2015, Star Wars The Force Awakens grossed $2,068,223,624. In 2016, Captain America Civil War grossed $1,153,304,495. In 2017, Star Wars The Last Jedi grossed $1,332,539,889. In 2018, Avengers The Infinity War grossed $2,048,359,754. In 2019, Avengers Endgame grossed $2,779,501,328. Some frogs can freeze solid and survive. Sea otters hold hands while sleeping to stay together. Crocodiles can't stick their tongues out. Bees can recognize human faces. The first computer was built in the 1940s. A sneeze travels up to 100 miles per hour. There are more stars in the universe than grains of sand. Your nose can detect 1 trillion different scents. Octopus mothers starve themselves to protect their eggs. The human body glows, but it is invisible to the human eye. In 2020, Demon Slayer Mugen Train grossed $503,063,688. In 2021, Spider-Man No Way Home grossed $1,922,598,800. In 2022, Avatar The Way of Water grossed $2,320,250,281. In 2023, Barbie grossed $1,447,038,421. In 2024, Inside Out 2 grossed $1,698,863,816. What if The Raven was a song by Dio? On a cold and endless night in shadows deep I lay, a voice calls out across the dark from realms so far away. The winds they howl, the thunder cracks, the storm begs to rise. A figure cloaked in black appears beneath the blood-red skies. Once I dreamed of peace and light, of days that never end, but the shadow in the doorway now has come to twist and bend. His eyes are cold, the wings are wide, a spirit lost in time. I begged for mercy, I prayed for light, but he just gave me rhyme. In the silence of the grave I feel the endless dread, the raven's claw upon my heart, forever trapped, he said. The past, the future intertwined, I'll never find my way. For every path I walk alone, the raven leads astray. The raven's gone, but I still feel his eyes, watching me from the shadows where the forgotten lies. Nevermore, nevermore, nevermore. A shrimp's heart is located in its head. The inventor of the frisbee was turned into a frisbee after he died. Pigeons can recognize themselves in a mirror. There's a species of jellyfish that can technically live forever. Scotland has 421 words for snow. Cows moo in different accents depending on where they live. A duel between 3 people is called a truel. The dot over the letter I is called a tittle. Some cats are allergic to humans. Wombats' brains are also cube-shaped, just like their poop. Are you still here? Seriously? You sat through all that? Well, thank you, but one question. How high are you? Alright, so you sat through the whole video, probably running somewhere around 20-25 minutes, and I hope you laughed. If you cried, you're way too high. But go ahead and share the video on your social media so all your friends can watch it and also wonder how high you were. Don't forget to like the video. If you want to see more content like this, make sure you subscribe so I know that you're liking the content. And as always, super thanks and channel memberships are super cool. And now, I got a jam, so tag, you're it.